What is going on, guys? This is Crowzen, and welcome back to another Baldur's Gate 3 build. This time we're going to be taking a look at the Bard, more specifically a Bardadin, which will be a Swords Bard / Vengeance Paladin multi-class build. And this build will be a little bit different than the conventional multi-class builds featuring a Bardadin. With this one, we're going to maintain 3 feats, and we're also going to be dual wielding, which means that we can use our offhand attack as a bonus action every turn, which will pair up really nicely with our guaranteed criticals and our divine smite damage. So a Bardadin makes for a really good hybrid class where they have amazing damage potential thanks to their flourishes and thanks to their guaranteed criticals and the divine smite damage, but they also have like the best crowd control spells in the game. They also make for a great main character because you're going to succeed any dialogue check that comes your way. So yeah, let's get into making a Bardadin. Alright, so starting with our ability points, Dexterity is going to be our main stat, so it's a good idea to go with 17 Dexterity. And then Charisma is also going to be a very important stat for a Bardadin, so 15 will work out well here. And then from there, I went with 14 Constitution. I kept Strength at a base of 10, same for Wisdom, and then I lowered Intelligence down to 8. For our skill proficiencies, we're going to go with Sleight of Hand, Intimidation, and Persuasion. It's just going to make all of those ability checks a lot easier. And we're going to start out with a Bard. Now, you do miss Heavy Armor proficiency by starting out with a Bard, but I really wouldn't worry too much about it since we're not going to be using Heavy Armor with this build. So just start with the Bard. 2 cantrips, we're going to go with Vicious Mockery and Minor Illusion. And then for our 4 starting spells, we are going to choose Dissonant Whispers, Long Strider, Speak with Animals, and Tasha's Hideous Laughter. So now we could take a look at the level path for a Bardadin, and the most important ability that you want to have early is that extra attack from a Swords Bard, and that comes at level 6. So that means that we're going to go 6 straight levels into a Bard. So at level 2, we unlock an additional spell. This is where I like to go for Feather Fall. You could also go for Healing Word here. This is a really good healing spell that you can pick up down allies with for a bonus action. It's really up to you, whichever you value more. I go for Feather Fall here. At level 3, this is where we can select our subclass. So we're going to go with the College of Swords. And then for our spells, we're going to get probably the most important spell for this build, and that is going to be Hold Person. And you could get this right at level 3, which is amazing. And then for our fighting style, we are going to go with 2-weapon fighting since we are dual wielding. Then at level 4, we unlock an additional cantrip. This is where I go for Mage Hand. And then for our additional spell, we have a lot of different options here. But I feel like Enhance Ability would probably help you out the most, as getting this at level 4 means that you have a really good spell early on in the game. And then we also get our first feat. What I like to do for this is I go for Ability Improvement, and I make sure that I get my Dexterity and Charisma to nice even numbers. At level 5, we gain another spell, and this is probably going to be our second most important spell on this build, and that will be Glyph of Warding. You can cast Sleep with this, and it's going to work out on any of those enemies that aren't humans, because Hold Person is only going to work on humans. So any kind of creature, that is where you can go into Glyph of Warding, cast Sleep on them, and it will function the same as Hold Person, where you're going to get those guaranteed criticals whenever you attack. So now that we're at level 6, we unlock our extra attack, but we also gain an additional spell. And there's like 4 really good spells here. The problem is you're only going to be able to get 3 additional spells from this point on. So one of them is going to have to be excluded from this build. But the 4 really good spells are Fear, Hypnotic Pattern, Cloud of Daggers, and Shatter. What I like to do here is I go for Hypnotic Pattern. Now that we're at level 7, this is where we're going to want to swap over into a Paladin. So we want to go ahead and add class. We want to go to a Paladin and choose Oath of Vengeance. So now that we're level 8, we want to keep going into a Paladin at this point. So at Paladin level 2, we unlock an additional fighting style, And the only one that's going to work for our build here will be defense. We'll gain an extra +1 bonus to our armor class. So now that we're level 9, which will be Paladin level 3, I just want to point out that we are going to unlock a really important class action, which is Valve Enmity, which will give us advantage for 10 straight turns. So in the combat showcase, I will go over this a little bit more, but just make sure that you use this class action. So now we want to keep leveling into a Paladin, so level 10 will be Paladin level 4. And we want to select our second feat here, and we want to go for Savage Attacker. Savage Attacker is going to pair up really nicely with our Divine Smites. So now that we're level 11, what we want to do is we want to go back into our Swords Bard, and for the last 2 levels we want to level up in a Bard. So we're going to get an additional spell here, and for this one what I like to do is I just go for Cloud of Daggers. And finally, now that we are level 12, which will be Bard level 8, we get our last spell, and I like to go for Shatter here. It's a nice AoE attack that you have. And we also gain our third feat, so I just go right back into ability improvements, and I max out dexterity at 20. Next up, we could take a look at our gear setup, and what I tried to do for the gear setup was I went for items that helped with the criticals, but also items that gave me more utility to this build. So there's a couple of items here that are going to be super important for a Bard. So Helmet of Arcane Acuity is really important here, which you get in Act 2. Basically, it makes it to where none of your enemies are going to be able to succeed a saving throw on hold person or on your sleep. So this is really what you want to have 100% essential for this build. And then everything else, you know, Cloak of Protection, Armor of Agility, Hell Dust Gloves, Disintegrating Night Walkers. We're also going to go with Amulet of Greater Health for advantage on our Constitution saving throws. And then for our rings, we're going to go with Strange Conduit Ring and Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. Band of the Mystic Scoundrel is going to be really good for a Bard because they're going to be able to cast illusion and enchantment spells as a bonus action after you hit a creature with your weapon attack, which is really going to pair up because most of our spells are either illusion or enchantment spells. So another super essential ring that you want to have on this build. And then for our weapons, we're going to go with Sword of Life Stealing and then Knife of the Undermountain King. You probably want to have Sword of Life Stealing in the main hand because the extra 10 necrotic damage that you get from this only works whenever you attack with it in the main hand. Like if I do an offhand attack, I won't get the bonus is what I'm trying to say. So Knife of the Undermountain King, that's just going to help you out with the critical hit chance. And then same thing applies for the dead shot. And as always, for the last part of this video, we're going to go over a basic combat showcase featuring the Bardadin. So you always want to make sure that you have a concentration spell active prior to going into a fight. And that is where Enhance Ability works out really well because you can just cast Eagle Splendor. That's going to help you out with your dialogue checks. And then when you go into combat, you already have that concentration spell active. So you're going to be able to pair that up with Strange Conduit Ring right from the beginning. You also want to make sure that you have your reactions for Divine Smite set to Ask. It's a really good practice to do this with every single reaction, by the way. And now we could finally get into doing some combat here. So the first thing you want to do is use your bonus action and cast Valve Enmity on yourself. This will give you free advantage for 10 straight turns. It is a really overpowered ability that Vengeance Paladins get at level 3. And so now we could just go right into combat here and we could use some of our flourishes. So since we got 2 enemies here lined up, we could use Slashing Flourish. So I'm going to go ahead and use that here. And as you see, we did get a critical on this guy. So what I'm going to do is for this enemy, I will not react. And then I'm going to react on the one with the critical. And then for the critical hits, most of the time you could get by with just using a level 1 spell slot. Sometimes you might want that extra damage if it's a boss or something. But most enemies, they'll die from just a regular level 1 critical hit for Divine Smite. So now we got an extra attack here. We're going to go right back into a slashing flourish. I should be able to hit both of these enemies here. And I'm just going to choose not to react. Well, actually, this enemy has 17 health left over. I might go for a level 2 Divine Smite here just to take that enemy out so that way they can't attack. And that is how I would start turn 1. So now we're in turn 2, and now we could really start to have some fun with this build. So the first thing that you want to do here is use an attack, so that way it's going to open up Hold Person for a bonus action. And the reason you want to use it as a bonus action rather than an action is because if I use this first, then that means I can only use my offhand attack, which means 1 attack. If I attack first, then use Hold Person, then I'm going to be able to use an extra attack as well, which will mean 2 attacks per turn rather than just 1 offhand attack. So always try to use your enchantment and your illusion spells as bonus actions if you have the ring. So first thing I'm going to try to do is move forward just a little bit, so that way I can maybe get this flourish here. So let's go ahead and cast that. We got a critical on both of these enemies. It's already showing that this enemy's dead, so I'm not sure why it's asking me for a critical hit here. I'm just not going to react there. So yeah, that's perfect. We got rid of both of them. So now what we can do is we can use Hold Person as a bonus action. So I'm going to probably get close to this enemy, so that way we can attack him here. But I'm going to use Hold Person. I'm going to upcast this, and since there's only 3 enemies left over, I'm just going to upcast it to a level 4 spell. Let's go ahead and use it on him, use it on the other archer, and use it on her. And now we got Hold Person, and basically this fight is over at this point. So let's go ahead and just use a normal main hand attack here. And we get the critical. Most of the time, if you use a main hand attack and you get a critical, you could probably get by with just getting a Divine Smite on a level 1 spell slot. If you're using it as an offhand attack, you might have to go for a level 2, just because, as I stated in the gear setup, the Sword of Life Stealing only works in the main hand. So yeah, that's why you could see that extra 10 from the necrotic damage there. That wouldn't happen if I did an offhand attack. So at this point, it's basically a done deal. So we could just move over here. If you have a party, you could just use your party members to go ahead and get their own criticals on melee attacks here. But yeah, we'll just wait until the next turn. And now we're in turn 3, so we could just get our critical attacks on both of these enemies that are CC'd. So we'll just go over here, use a main hand attack. This enemy has 13 health left over. We'll just use a level 1 spell, and then we can move over here and just repeat the process. And yeah, that is basically how you could just shut down a whole fight. So I hope you guys enjoyed my Bardadin build, and yeah, there's just so much going on here with this build, between the guaranteed criticals, the crowd control with Hold Person and Sleep, the Divine Smite critical damage, the offhand attack which gives us an extra critical hit per turn, the free advantage thanks to our Vow of Enmity from the Vengeance Paladin. I mean, so many things going on here, and it's just really fun to use this build. So I would highly recommend you guys give this one a try. So yeah, let me know if you want to see any other kind of builds. Give me a specific build in the comments, and yeah, I might get around towards making it. So hope to see you guys in the next one.